Live from the virtual Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit, welcome sim racing fans to the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup Championship live on Apex Racing TV. I'm your host Joshua Lee. Joining me in the commentary booth is Alessandro Dalladone with Marco Barbanera down in the virtual production trailer. And Alessandro, we're coming off of an amazing week number 1 in Long Beach. It was a domination from Leon Erger in the AM class, Kamil Grabowski grabbing the win in race 2 in the pro class, Kevin Nielsen going on top in race number 1. Are you expecting more of the same action we saw in Long Beach here today? Because it seemed like we had action from the front to the midfield all the way to the back.
Absolutely, Joshua. Thanks for introducing me. I expect, obviously, great racing also here at the Nurburgring. The Porsche GT3 Cup car is one of the best on the service, and I think we'll see some new faces maybe also up top in both classes, because obviously Long Beach was a particular track, so we might see someone who maybe didn't excel in street circuit have a better chance for the win, but I think we will also see more or less the same guys up top, like Kevin Nielsen, Casper Lund, fighting for the win, because these guys have shown a very, very good pace in US.
Yeah, the points right now show a lot of pro drivers up at the top of the standings as qualifying gets started. And just a heads up for everybody, cautions were off in an error last week. They are on today and they have been double checked. So we will have, damage, not cautions. Damage is on, so we will have damage on these race cars if they get into contact too hard. But here are the point standings, and you can see a lot of pro drivers up towards the front. Grabowski, Nielsen, Cam, Costa, Kessler, all the top 5, they're all pro class. You have to go fairly all the way down to find anybody in the AM class right now, but that is Leon Erger who leads the AM class championship. And there we go. This is specifically all your AM drivers. For Leon Erger leads the way. Niels Teasters in second with Dennis Meisner in third. And it's a fairly tight race for the AM class championship, but Erger's starting to run away with that. And it's a little bit of the same story in the pro class. A couple drivers starting to run away, but overall, it is still anybody's race as we still have a lot of rounds remaining here in this series. 9 rounds. We're only on round number 2 here, Alessandro.
Absolutely. The championship is very long. We have 2 races every meeting, so it's just the first round, and today we will see already some changes in the standings, in both classes, and hopefully we'll see also some new winners. It's also very important to point out, as we saw last week in Long Beach, that for the AM drivers, that inverted grid for race 2 sometimes could be key for the win of their races in race 2. As we saw last week, the leader got pole position after winning the AM class, finishing 14th place, and the second place had to start all the way in 15th for race 2.
And we talked about it last week, but I feel like now that the points are really more of a factor and more of a storyline now, this might come back up. It's the fact that this is multi-class championship, but it's not multi-class racing. Everybody's in the same class. Everybody's racing for the same win. We have a pro and an AM class winner of each race, but they're not in separate cars. They're all in one class on the racetrack, just in different classes for the points and for the results. So when you're looking at it, a pro driver might come up on an AM driver and think, you know, that they need to let me by, I'm faster. That might not always be the case because they're on the same track. They're racing for track position against drivers of different classes.
It's also very important this qualifying session, because remember, we have more than 40 cars on the track, and starting all the way at the back, it's gonna give you a very hard time in race 1 to get some very good points, and probably make it also into the inverted grid section, which for this event is set to 13th place. So remember, P13 in race 1 will have the pole position for race 2.
First time starting to come in from the first group of cars that went out of pit road. It looks like right now it's Casper Lund. Never mind, it's Pascal Costa going to the top of the board, a 159.220. A couple drivers in the low 2 minutes. handful of them currently punching their ticket into the 159s, but right now that's really only Costa, Roland, and Lund. And you can see the difference between your pro and your AM class drivers on the timing tower. Green means they are in the pro class, red means they're in the AM class, and Kev Copeland, last year's AM class champion, doing a great job. He's up into 11th with Fang, Hulse, Offerstrom, McKay, and Barton. Make that bigger dike now as he makes his way into 16th overall. Peter Mackay looking for a better race this weekend. We talked to him at post-race last week, and he was a little bit disappointed. He didn't get the result that he wanted, but there's his Apex Racing TV commentator colleague, Dane Baird, hopping up into 14th. Good lap from Dane. He's now third in the AM class, 14th overall in that Karos competition machine as he heads back through the Mercedes Arena, turn 2. And the times just starting to work their way in, about halfway done with qualifying now. A good lead for Costa as Kamil Grabowski, the next car down, has a 159.45 versus a 159.22. So a great lap from Pascal Costa. As we take a look at more cars coming across the start-finish line, all trying to put in their laps to try and start up front. A couple drivers going out for multiple more laps. That was Peter Wadsworth.
Also on this track, seems like traffic in qualifying might be an issue for especially the fastest guys in the field. Not like last week in Long Beach for sure. That was definitely a different story, but still with this car, gaps are very, very close, especially at the top. Not counting Costa for the time being, because a 2/10 lead on Grabowski in second place is very, very good. This driver need to be careful because you have 5 laps of qualifying essentially available to set a very good time, and if you don't have a free track in any of them, this will cost you a lot of positions.
Taking a look at Josh Cam for Porsche Sport. Kamil Grabowski coming across the line for Evolve Racing. He'll improve a little bit, but he stays in second by 11/100ths of a second, and that is a very close time to the 159.220 from Costa. Kevin Nielsen gonna punch his ticket into the top 3. He hops up into 3rd. He's the race 1 winner from last week in Long Beach in the pro class. Lewis Ward coming across the line looking for a better time. He's not gonna improve off of 9th. As everybody continues to work their way across the line, we hop down to Simone Van Dyke for Next Level Racing. Coming out of the final corner. That is turn 16, the Coca-Cola curve onto the front straightaway. Very unique circuit here at the Nurburgring. Formula One returned to it during the pandemic this season, and it is very unique for both F1 cars and for these Porsche cars, because usually when you think of the Nurburgring, you're thinking of the Nordschleife, the long, basically almost asphalt rally course through the countryside. But here, this is a full-on Grand Prix circuit, elevation changes, rumble strips that can eat you up. Alessandro, this is a very unique course, especially considering what's just on the other side of the gate.
Absolutely, and not because it's only 2 minutes long, isn't as difficult as the biggest track, the Nordschleife, because you can see how the track is putting some drivers under pressure, as we see here a replay from the 199 of Casper Lund. These big curves can definitely upset the car, even if the Porsche Cup is actually one of the best cars to go on these big curves that with some other machines can cause any damage.
The AXA Sim Sport driver getting caught up by those curbs. Another AXA Sim Sport driver is Kevin Nielsen. He's looking to improve on his 3rd place. He's so close. He's less than 1/10 of a second away from pole. Getting a little bit on the grass there. Don't know if that's going to be a off track. Will this lap count? It doesn't look like it did. He might have just gotten an off track very late right there. And unfortunately, that is going to spell the end of his qualifying session. It looks like Nick Rowland might have had the same thing happen to him. He's now going to reset back into the pits. We take a look at more cars, just trying to get as much of a slipstream as they can, get their final laps in. Less than a minute left in qualifying as Torre Bervin goes through the Coca-Cola curve, turn 16. Gets a little loose. You can see a little bit of counter steer going through that corner, but he keeps the car under him. Can he improve on 18th? Yes, he will, up into 14th. 2 minutes, 167 for Torre Bervin, as Bradley Holst now going to come across the line. We'll see if he's going to improve on his time at all. Currently, his fastest time is a 2:02.64. Across the line, he won't improve at all. Now Dane Baird for Caro's competition. Is he going to improve on his time through the final corner? Fastest time, 2:01.24. Will he improve on it at all as he comes across the line looking for a better time? Slightly, a 2 minutes 96 points. 2 minutes 966. So he'll improve a little bit, but only up into 21st. And that's going to conclude qualifying here for the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup Championship. We now set the grid for the 20-minute race number 1. Pascal Costa starts on the pole with Kamir Grabowski in second. Kevin Nielsen in third. Nick Rowland fourth. Casper Lund will round out your top 5 with Danny Lee, Nick Madsen, Leon Erger back atop of the amateur class in 8th. Josh Cam 9th. Niels Langevield rounds out your top 10 with Lewis Ward in 11th. Roger Christensen in 12th. Kev Copeland in 13th. Torre Bervin in 14th. Damian Harris 15th. Cass Brinkhusen in 16th. Max Kessler 17th. Erstrom Ofsterstrom in 18th. Hans Hansen in 19th with Kevin Bowen rounding out your top 20. Dame Baird in 21st. Mark Jones in 22nd. Bob Humphrey 23rd. Michael Fain will round out your top 24 with Lucas Daring in 25th. Thomas Grendel 26th. Peter Mackay in 27th. 28th is Simone Van Dijk. 29th, Bradley Holst with Dennis Meisner rounding out your top 30 with Peter Wadsworth 31st. Paul Doman 32nd. David Bigadike 33rd. Niels Teasters 34th. Gab Barton 35th. Dan Parmalee in 36th. 37th, David Plasman 38th. Salvatore Larney 39th. Fabian Meyer with John Gordon rounding out your top 40. Then rounding out your field, it's Raymond Doe, Cal Coolman, Jack Knight, Jelt Heldorn, Martin Spalik, Elise DeFries, and Austin Foster with Alessandro Daldone accidentally hitting race now before he came into this session to commentate for us. He is not on the track racing. Alessandro, what are you expecting from this race?
Well, definitely a very great battle and big things from that 61 car.
I'm expecting big things from the 61 as well, but it looks like he's going to be starting from the pits, unfortunately. But here we go as we get ready to go racing. Costa on the pole with Grabowski right there in second. That is a golden line for the inside going through the hard braking zone of turn number 1. But then Pascal Costa has a great line for the Mercedes Arena and turn 2. Let's go racing. We're green for race number 1 from the Nurburgring. They're still side by side for the lead. Great start for both Grabowski and Costa. Grabowski has a nose to the inside. Now here comes Nielsen and Roland behind. They're 2 by 2, almost 3 by 3 as they go through 1 for the first time. One car goes wide, gets back on the racetrack. Early lead for Grabowski as he gets by Costa ahead of Nielsen, Roland, Madsen, Lund, Lee, Cam, and Erger. Right now, as they all go through turn number 3, everybody's so close together, not giving each other any room as they come back onto the straightaway.
Great start for everybody. Great battles as we have some issue for Copeland in the midfield. Also Plasman later in the back of the field had some issue in turn 1. But so far so good at the top with Grabowski having a great start, jumping Pascal Costa for the lead.
Kev Copeland went around going through on the straightaway, but here they come, the hard braking zone into the Dunlop curve. Long sweeping left-hander. Grabowski gets good traction coming out of it, but Costa does as well. He's right on that back bumper, but there's Kevin Nielsen right behind. Oh my God, a huge battle going on back here for the 116 of Nick Rowland and Casper Lund. They made contact on those front and rear bumpers of each of those cars. None of them getting into trouble, but there was a little bit of argy-bargy there as they come back through. Anybody looking like everybody getting through well as Grabowski still leads. Josh Cam gonna get ahead of the 116 and Nick Rowland. Rowland's in the grass.
He went wide there side by side with Lund on the big right-hander before this backstretch, as we have still some more passes in the midfield with Overstrom and Berben fighting for 16th place. We are looking at Cam now defending from Langeved. You saw how tight was that exit, and everybody's sliding into position right behind as Bowen is the wrong way, facing the wrong way and back onto the track.
Bowen will get back going. That is one of your pro class drivers. As one car comes into pit road, that's Nick Rowland. They might have some damage on that car. Might be looking for a fresh set of tires after that short trip into the grass. As we have a battle back here between Langeveld Cam and Leon Erger. Now, Erger is your leader currently of the AM class, but like we mentioned before, they are racing for overall points. So the winner, whether they're pro or AM, gets the same points, and the points format is based on overall finish. It's not based on class finish. So any position Erger can gain on these pro drivers will get him more points. And the pro drivers need to gain a position on Erger to get more points than him. So they need to race each other like they're forgetting about the class. The class is only for the point standings, as Erger is right now sandwiched between Cam and Lee. As we hop up to Grabowski, battling with Pascal Costa. Now, Costa started on the pole. He's sitting there in second, right on that back bumper, with Nielsen watching behind in third. And right now, Grabowski's showing great pace, but Costa's right there. He's not that far off. And last time by, he was only 3/10 off from the leader, Camille Grabowski. It's an Evolve Racing versus Impulse Racing battle as they work their way through Sector 3.
Yeah, great battle between these drivers. We've seen these drivers fight for the top spots also last week. As we look now for the battle between Berven and Overstrom for 15th. Remember, the inverted grid will start from P13, which is now occupied by Bob Humphrey in the Evo SR car.
Dane Baird trying to make a pass up the inside in the 224. Not able to get it on Pontus Offerstrom as Torre Bervin keeps the spot in the 126. Now Baird's going to hop up into that next spot as Hans Gunnar Hansen joins the fight as well in the 184. There's Offerstrom. He lost a good bit of positions coming off of the corner. Wondering if he might have gotten a little bit loose as Langeveld sets a new fastest lap as well. This top three battle definitely starting to heat up as Nielsen has reeled them in. He is now in this battle, and he had a faster lap time last time by than Pascal Costa. So we said it was an Evolve versus Impulse racing battle. Now add AXA SimSport into that battle.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin is very fast, and with these two guys very close to each other, and Grabowski maybe doing some defensive lines to not let Costa bite. This is giving him the chance to reel them down, but I wouldn't count out also the other Danish drivers behind. Nick Madsen and Kasper Lund are only 1.5 seconds behind.
On board with Nielsen as they exit the Dunlop curve through the Michael Schumacher S. High speed, left and right, back onto the straightaway. As Nielsen, you can see him running right in that draft, and we see this a lot with the championship series for these Porsches every week. The iRacing World Championship series for these cars. They run in a draft. They use that slipstream a lot. It becomes almost like draft lines at Daytona and Talladega in the NASCAR stock cars. And we're seeing that here on a smaller scale, but we're still seeing it come to fruition here in this top three battle as they just try and get any slipstream they can. If they can make a pass, do it. As who's that around? That's the 277 of Mark Jones.
Also Dane Baird, I think, is having issues. We saw him in the gravel. Let's catch a replay of that. The 224 of Baird around the outside. Will there be some contact? Yes, it is. Also, the 184 is involved, of Hans Gunnar Hansen. Very unfortunate because they were having a very nice battle. As we go back to the top guys, 1, 2, 3 all together, and following we have Madsen, Lund and Lang. I saw some damage maybe on the front of Lund. A few scratches, maybe from lap 1 with Roland.
Looks like there might be a little bit of front end damage on our right side, their left side on that 199 of Kasper Lund. Doesn't look like it's affecting the speed as much. His lap times are still fairly consistent, and he's keeping up currently in 5th. We'll keep an eye on that car in that damage. Here's your AM class leader, Leon Erger, currently AM class drivers championship leader as well. With Danny Lee behind, Cass Brinkhusen behind him in about 2 cars back as Erger makes his way through the Dunlop curve. And Leon Erger has been the star of the AM class so far. When you think of pro versus AM, you think the pros are going to dominate, but Leon Erger right now has been the main driver from the AM class to punch their way into that pro class and say, hey, I'm here to race. I'm here to, dominate, whether it's AM class or pro class. You can see that gap, 14.5 seconds over second place in the AM class. Leon Erger is showing why he is here, and he right now is my championship favorite. I don't know if it's the same for you, Alessandro, but he has been lighting this series on fire in just the first 2 races we had in Long Beach and now here in race 3.
Absolutely, need to be careful though, because racing with all these pro drivers, as we see some trouble for Nick Madsen defending from Casper Lund. He has to give him the inside on the last corner, side by side on exit, and also Langeveld looking to make it 3 wide if he can in turn 1, which is always a very big trouble spot, especially with these cars without ABS.
Side by side diving into turn number 1. That's a move from Casper Lund on Nick Madsen. Madsen now going to have the inside through this corner in the 120. They make a little bit of contact, maybe. Looks like they might have gotten away with it. There's almost a little bit of contact as well from Niels Langeveld in the 110 behind. But these two are going to stay together. Almost contact once more as they race through turn number 6 and 7. These guys are running very close together now, side by side for the second spot in this battle. Here comes the 110 of Niels Langeveld. He's going to go side by side now with Madsen. These guys race through the Dunlop curb, so close to making contact. Here comes the Porsche Sport driver, Josh Cam, now to join the fight as these 3 race together, making a 4-horse fight now as here comes the Porsche Sport driver that I just mentioned, Josh Cam, and contact to go around. That's the 110 as well as the 199 of Casper Lund, and more damage coming in the back.
Yeah, some drivers couldn't avoid the sitting car. Is the 143 with almost another rejoin ending up in tears. Is pretty much day over for Casa Brenquisten. I think he's towing back to pit road, but yeah, absolutely unfortunate. Niklas Madsen with a loft up on the back of Langeveld, turned him around and also involved Casper Lund. This giving obviously Josh Cam the 5th position in the standings right now.
We thought damage being on would make the racing a little, we wouldn't have these battles, but we're still getting the same battles we've had from Long Beach, and I think even better battles, as you can see the damage on the back half of that fight, but that battle going up to that was sensational, and it was an amazing race to call and just to watch here in the series. And unfortunately it ended in a crash, but some good cars are taken out, but that was an amazing fight that we got to witness here in race number 1. Halfway done with race number 1, 10 minutes down, 10 minutes to go. Grabowski leads ahead of Costa, Nielsen, Madsen, and Cam, your top 5. For the pro class, and in the AM class, it's Erger, Copeland, Hulse, Fang, and Gordon, as they range from positions 12 to 21. The top 5 of the pro class, the same as the top 5 in the overall. Race 1 is a total of 20 minutes. We have about 9 of those remaining. Then we'll have a warm-up inning before race 2, 5 minutes long, and then we'll inverse the grid of between top 12 and 24, and we'll have a 30-minute race number 2. See if we can grab that inverse grid number for all of you. And there's the wreck from on board with Leon Erger, AM class leader. He went off track. Doesn't look like a lot of damage to that car, so it looks like he's still good to keep working on that lead in the 12th position. He did lose a couple spots to some pro class drivers, so he's going to lose some overall points towards his championship. We'll see if he can fight his way back. Now here's Madsen. After that wreck happened, he's now battling with Josh Cam, Danny Lee behind him. These guys are not as close together, obviously, as they were before, but they have a group of cars now ahead of them as we take a look at Leon Erger. Oh my God, more side-by-side going on between Lund and Langeveld. They're not done, even with the damage on both of their front ends. Now a little bit more extensive damage to Niels Langeveld. They are battling right behind your AM class leader, Leon Erger, as here comes Langeveld and Lund. They're still racing. That wreck did not deter the racing at all. A huge dive up the inside. Are we going to see more contact? Maybe. Almost made contact with Leon Erger as they go through the chicane, but Lund is going to grab that spot from Langewield as we hop up to the battle for the lead.
Yeah, remember, this is the position that will give the drivers the pole position for race 2, 13th place. So obviously these drivers are giving their best, because whoever ends up there will start the next race on pole, as we see another turn 1 send by Casper Lund on Leon Erger, that unfortunately was involved in that big wreck at the hairpin, but still has a sizable lead in the AM class. Gave up some points, but still plenty of places between him and Copeland in 16th.
Now taking a look at the battle between Salvatore Larney and Peter Wadsworth as we hop back to oh my god, a huge battle between Wadsworth. One car around, a self-spin on the outside. That was Martin Spalik, but that was Simone Van Dijk getting a great move on Fabian Meyer going through turn number 1. As now, you can see Dane Bear in the 224. He had some issues earlier. He got involved in an earlier wreck. He is now running in the 36th spot, looking to gain any positions off of this fight that he can. It looks like he might have just gained 2 for the price of 1 there, as he tries to now catch up to the driver we're on board with of Martin Spalik as they race down towards turn 6 and 7, and they'll race into the Dunlop curve. 3-wide battle now as Erger's involved in this one. Casper Lund in the 199. Oh, contact between the 126 as well as the 110. That's Bourbon and Langewield as here comes Casper Lund now on the back bumper. Leon Erger looking for any way to possibly get by. Lund has been in fights all throughout the mid part of race number 1. He dove it up the inside of the 110 just a couple laps to go. And here comes the 110 diving it up the inside of the 126. Langewield looking for the spot. He might have forced Bourbon off a little bit there, but he gets it.
Great pass by Langewield. These guys obviously trying to come back after some mistakes early on, and someone who needs to be super careful. Ooh, this is bad. They get clipped. Erger somehow manages to keep the car on track right when I was about to say that he needs to be careful, because these pro drivers are not giving him any inches, and Erger goes almost around on the front stretch.
He was able to save it after that tangle with the 119, but they keep on going. Man, what a save from Erger as well to keep on going. And there's second place in the AM class. That's Kev Copeland in the 268, last season's champion in the AM Drivers Championship. He now has a full sight on Erger. Erger, with 5 minutes to go in race number 1, could lose his first race of the season. He won both race 1 and race 2 last week in Long Beach. Could he be dethroned here in the AM class today? Let's take a look at that replay from that incident. The 199 on the inside, that's Casper Lund. Erger on the outside, and just looks like running close together. Erger got a little bit too far on the rumble strip. Maybe was trying to chase it down the straightaway, but that just looks like a very, very close racing, quickly turned into very close contact.
Absolutely nothing they could do about it. The steward will probably have a look after the race, but for the time being, let's go back to the front and have a look at these guys fighting for the win. Grabowski, Costa, and the other Axel Simsport car of Kevin Nielsen back together for these last 4 minutes of this event.
4 minutes remain here in race number 1 before we take a break for the 5-minute race 2 warm-up and then get started with the feature race of the day. 30 minutes on the docket for that one. And this battle has remained largely the same since the start of the race. It has been Grabowski leading Costa, leading Nielsen by only about 3 to 2/10 separating each of these guys at any given time. Evolve Racing versus Impulse Racing versus Axis Simsport. And these three have been unseparatable since the start. And you can see how much they're faster than Madsen behind, and Nielsen's really running away with this group, and that shows how big the draft is with these Porsche cars. You can see Madsen is 10 seconds behind the leader Grabowski, and it's still growing even as they race on, and they're in their own battle as well. So Madsen, Cam, and Lee in a battle for 4th and 5th and 6th. Grabowski, Costa, Nielsen in a battle for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. On the racetrack is the 124. Danny Lee looked to the outside just for a moment there as we take a look back at Leon Erger versus Kev Copeland. And You can see Erger with that damage. He is not sacrificing anything. And he is trying to run away from Kev Copeland, but the times are faster for Kev Copeland. Even before that damage happened, Kev Copeland was starting to chase Leon Erger down. And we might see Leon Erger lose his first race of the season here, but Kev Copeland behind, running out of time, only about 2.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting between these two drivers. Only 1 second separating the AM first and second position, and also behind Bartley's 10 seconds behind could be the one profiting from some tangling between these two if something happens in these last 2 laps.
Back up to the front, here comes Grabowski. He'll come across the line. I believe we're just gonna barely be on 2 laps to go when they come across the line. They might have made white flag. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see if we can get a confirmation from our producer, Marco Barbonera, if this is the white flag lap or not. But either way, it's either 2 to go or 1 to go. And they dive back into turn number 1. It was very close. That's why I was wondering if we can get any sort of confirmation. But Grabowski leads ahead of Costa, ahead of Nielsen. And as the race winds down, I don't know if this battle is going to wind down at all, because Grabowski has been able to command this lead, and I don't think he's going to let Costa by anywhere. He knows where the passing zones are. I don't think he's going to give up the line in any of those.
Absolutely, it's going to be a very interesting battle, and you know, Josh, how difficult it is to pass with these cars when you have the same pace. It takes some bold moves and sometimes being very, very aggressive, as we've seen here back with Cam and Lee fighting for 5th position, giving Nick Madsen the chance to pull away for 4th.
And here's the battle between Erger and Copeland for the win in the AM class. Erger had that contact a couple of laps ago on the front straightaway with the 199 of Casper Lund, and that caused Kev Copeland to close an already shrinking gap even further now to where he is within striking distance, as Grabowski leads the way ahead of Costa, ahead of Nielsen, and these 3 are still battling their way through as they come onto one of the longer straightaways of the racetrack. It is not the front straightaways. They go through Hotzenbeck's turn 13 into the 14-15 chicane. Will the 167 make any moves? No, he won't. Grabowski going to keep the lead through the chicane this time by, and as they come onto the front straightaway, I believe this time by will be the white flag, as it was very close when they came across the line the first time. But I don't believe time's going to expire just yet. This is white flag this time by, so we will have 1 lap remaining, and Grabowski leads now a hearty gap of 5/10, but Costa might have Nielsen behind as Harris is around. That's Damian Harris in the 153 through the chicane.
Very difficult that chicane. He made a small mistake and lost plenty of position. It's going to be interesting to see if all the drivers predicted a race of 11 laps, Joshua, because that was very, very close. We might see some drivers struggling with fuel.
Battle between Bourbon and Deering as they go diving into turn number 1. The 217 of Michael Fang around as well. He was 8th in AM class, 26 overall in the 112 of Lucas Deering's around.
Turn 1, always very difficult. Deering with issues. I think also Bradley Hurst behind him was having some trouble in turn 1. But here we are with our leader, Kamil Grabowski.
So Grabowski has had Costa and Nielsen behind him the entire race, but they have not been able to find any way around. That Evolve Racing driver has been commanding the way. He is currently on a win streak. He won race number 2 last week in Long Beach, and now we're in race 3 total for the season. Race 1 here at the Nurburgring, and he's looking to bring it home a winner as they go on to the straightaway through Hotzenbeck's turn 13 and into the final 14, 15, and 16, the chicane into the Coca-Cola curve. No contest from Costa and Nielsen. Will they make any dives up the inside? No, they're not, and it looks like Nielsen is also not going to go for second place on Costa. Makes a little move, not going to be able to get there. Neither is the 167 of Pascal Costa. So through the final corner and across the start-finish line, Kamil Grabowski takes the win for the pro class in race number 1 ahead of Costa and Nielsen. Now we got back to the battle between Madsen, Cam, and Kessler. It looks like Madsen has pulled away. This is a battle between Cam and Lee for the 5th position. And it looks like it's going to be Josh Cam for Porsche Sport coming across the line to take 5th place overall and in the pro class. Now across the line, this is the battle between Casper Lund and Torre Bergen. It looks like Lund's going to get the best of it, and Leon Erger is going to get the best of the AM class fight. He's going to win by inches, by about a car length and a half over Kev Copeland for the AM class win, and 14th place overall as more cars come across the line.
Yeah, great battle for the win in AM. It's Berben, Tor Berben, our race to pole sitter in 13th place, just a position short for our AM driver, leader from the reverse grid pole position, as we see another battle for 36th place between Eldon and Bartin. Great pass for Eldon, who is gonna get the P36, as also Tisters looks toward the inside to make a pass work, and there is some contact between the two. Tisters goes to 36th place, and Bartin, facing the wrong way in a very precarious position, will come over the start finish line right now as we look at our last car on the track of Brinkwitzen in 43rd place, our pro driver having a rough day in race 1. He unfortunately will have to start at the back in race 2, so it's gonna be a comeback race, even though it's a bit longer, Josh, race 2 compared to race 1.
About 10 minutes longer. It'll be 30 minutes instead of 20, and that inverse number for the grid is 13. So it'll be an all-pro class inverse with Bervin starting on the pole in race number 2. We're going to take a quick break to thank a few sponsors before we get into race number 2, before we send you away to see some commercials. We just want to thank one sponsor really quickly, and that is our own Apex Racing Academy, the title sponsor of this series. And you can head to apexracingac.com right now to view all the wonderful packages that Apex Racing Academy has available. 29 data packs, setups, track guides, weekly group coaching sessions, and it is all integrated with virtual racing school. And you can also get the Porsche Cup data pack as well with instructor Kevin Ellis Jr. So head to apexracingac.com right now, and we'll see you after the break for race number 2 from the Nurburgring.
Virtual Racing School was developed to provide support to the next generation of sim racers. No matter if you're a rookie or veteran or what car or track you'll be racing, our goal is to provide training every step of the way. We found that iRacing can be quite difficult without proper training. There needed to be a way to prepare for on-track racing. With VRS, you can literally learn from the best sim racers in the world, including 4-time NASCAR iRacing World Champion Ray Alfala.
And Ray Alfala is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series.
3-time iRacing Grand Prix World Champion Martin Kroenke.
Martin Kroenke becomes a 3-time world champion.
Rallycross World Champion Mitchell de Jong.
Mitchell de Jong is now champion for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series.
And many other top sim racers. Data packs include everything you need to start learning. Our World Championship coaches create the data packs by setting a hot lap or a series of fast laps for you to compare, analyze, and replicate. Data packs also include a tutorial where the coach points out techniques they use to hit the fast lap. This gives you access to the latest driving techniques and setups before you even hit the track. Sign up for a free account and download the VRS telemetry logger. With this application running seamlessly in the background, your laps automatically start syncing to the VRS website. From there, you can analyze and compare 2 laps of your choice, whether it's your data, the coaches, or your teammates. VRS will automatically target improvement opportunities so you can get up to speed even faster. VRS also makes it easy for you to request and schedule one-on-one or group coaching sessions. These sessions can range from 30 to 90 minutes, and you can select the car, track, and setup combination of your choice. Visit virtualracingschool.com today to sign up and get started.
Welcome back to the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup Championship. Race 1 results now on your screen. Grabowski commanding the race, grabbing the win with Costa and Nielsen close behind, with Madsen, Cam, Lee, Kessler, Langevield, Harris, and Humphrey rounding out your top 10. You can see the two AM-class drivers who were at the top of the field towards the midfield. That was Leon Erger and Kev Copeland. They came across the line, only about 3/10 separating those two at the end after some contact mid-race from Leon Erger with Casper Lund. But those are the top two for the AM class. And Alessandro, looking at this results list, it's a command of pro class drivers, but you can see also those AM drivers poking their way in. Even Halson Jones doing an amazing job racing up with the pro drivers. We're seeing a couple faces start to peek out from the AM classes, maybe being those championship fighters. And right now it's Erger and Copeland, but I'd say even as far down as, you know, Jones, like I was just talking about, they could be threats for this overall drivers championship.
Absolutely, it's for the AM drivers, consistency is gonna be key in this championship, because it's a long way, and if they are doing really well in races, they have to fight with these pro drivers that, as we saw in the first race, don't leave much space and fight really hard. So sometimes for these drivers, they need also to think about, do I let him go if he's racing me very aggressively, because making some contacts could mean not finishing the race or losing at best a few positions. So sometimes you just need to give to get a better result, as we saw with our drivers today. But 9 events, 18 races, consistency is gonna be key for them.
Well, we are ready to get started with race number 2. The magic number for the inverse, 13. So Tor A. Bervin, who started in 13th in the race number 1, who finished in 13th, will start on first here for race number 2. Casper Lund in 2nd, Roger Christensen 3rd, Bob Humphrey 4th, with Damian Harris rounding out your top 5. Then Niels Langevield in 6th, Max Kessler 7th, Danny Lee in 8th, Josh Cam in 9th, with Nick Madsen rounding out your top 10. Kevin Nielsen in 11th, Pascal Costa in 12th. Then your race 1 winner, Kamil Grabowski, in 13th, with Leon Erger and Kev Copeland, 2 AM class drivers, starting in 14th and 15th. Lucas Deering 16th, Thomas Grendel 17th, David Plasman in 18th, Bradley Holst 19th, with Hans Hansen rounding out your top 20. With Mark Jones, Salvatore Larney, Peter Wadsworth, Paul Doman, and Michael Fain rounding out your top 25. With Peter Mackay, Fabian Meyer, Dane Baird, Cal Coolman, and Austin Foster rounding out your top 30. And we are ready to go green flag racing already for race number 2. The lights are on and they are off. Let's go racing here for race number 2 from the Nurburgring. 30 minutes on the clock and it starts now. Lund going to lead the field into turn number 1. He has the dominant line on the inside. Your pole sitter Bervin's going to be on the outside. He's battling now with Roger Christensen for 2nd place, but Lund for AXA Simsport is off and away. Already a 6.5 gap builds up between 1st and 2nd.
Great start for Lund in turn 1, as we see already some drivers that were up front. Someone is around in the first places. Thankfully, he's on the outside, so not really in the way of the oncoming field. But look at these guys, side by side, all the way till the end of the grid.
Still side by side with Humphrey now and Christensen. As Humphrey going to take the spot, Christensen falls to 3rd. There's Nick Madsen. He made a lot of moves in race number 1, and that's Kevin Nielsen closing the door on the 120 of Madsen as they go through Dunlop Curve now for the first time here in race number 2. Side by side a little bit towards the back, and that's Leon Erger getting racy back there with David Plasman. He's looking for any spots that he can. Erger's now up to 12th as Josh Cam in the Porsche Sport 177 going to keep that spot as the 124. Danny Lee falls behind. Moving up, that's David Plasman now ahead of Kev Copeland. And around the outside, tries going Leon Erger on the Porsche Sport driver. Josh Cam, maybe a little bit of contact there. Close, but I don't think there was any. Now he has a mirror full of David Plasman as they race through turn 13 now for the first time. Side by side, that's Harrison Madsen going side by side. Sorry, Harrison Nielsen going side by side. Madsen's ahead of this battle. Contact. And oh, Madsen's around. One call around. A huge pile-up going through the chicane.
Unfortunate end for the AXA car and the drivers coming, but still the track is blocked and all oncoming traffic having to navigate through this bottleneck of stranded cars. Let's go back to the front of the grid with Copeland, our AM leader, in 6th place, profiting from this big wreck, and Madsen trying to make a password on Langeville. He pushes him wide, they both go wide. Oh boy.
More contact going through turn 1, and that's Langeville around, and so is Madsen.
That was a very
dominant
nice
pro drivers' cars around.
That rejoins were not as safe as we expected to, and unfortunately both are around. Erger now going through Madsen for 17th. Plenty of work to do for these two guys now.
Well, Copeland, for the first time this season, is going to lead the AM class currently here in race number 2. He is last year's AM Drivers Champion, and he is now sitting in the lead of this AM class in race number 2 right now as he goes to battle.
Oh,
Contact with Copeland. Who is that around? That was Grendel. Thomas Grendel around in the 113.
Very difficult to race so hard with these cars, and some minimum contact can move the car in front into a spin, as we have 3 wide here between Fangus and Grabowski. Someone is around. It's
Mark
Jones.
Around into the asphalt runoff area. Oh, another car around. That's Kevin Nielsen into the air.
Oh boy. It's a race over for Nielsen for sure. Also Bartin is having some issues, was involved in the incident. As here Kev Copeland in 7th place, still our AM leader, but just 2 positions back we have Michael Fang and Bradley Hulse, 2nd and 3rd.
Whoever we put the camera on is wrecking Marco. Oh. Please stop changing the cameras. The 195 of Kamil Grabowski, your current points leader in the pro class and race 1 winner. Damage. He might be out of this race as well as he goes through the gravel. Here's one of the replays of the many incidents we saw on that lap. This is on board with Leon Erger, and there's Grabowski spinning in front, and huge damage for the 222 on the front.
Big championship implication for all these drivers, Grabowski and also Erger, leading both classes coming into this event, as we have still some more drivers having issues in turn 1. I guess we can call it for people being over aggressive in this second race start, trying to get so many positions at the start instead of making sure to get away clean in those opening 5 minutes, having 25 more left in this race.
That is possible. Alessandro, I wanted to bring something up real quick because we saw a lot of close racing in race number 1 and not a lot of incidents. Do you think these drivers might have gotten a little too confident, a little too brave, and are now making moves that they're going to end up with hitting another car that they wouldn't have done in turn number 1? Oh, Kev Copeland's around.
Replay, yeah. Too much master entering turn 1. Thankfully not damage for him, getting out of the way to make sure that nobody was gonna hit him. Also some other drivers in the background we saw earlier having trouble. Turn 1 always very, very big travel spot with any car around the Nurburgring GP track.
So AM class leader, both of them, was Erger, then Erger wrecked out. Now it was Kev Copeland. Now Copeland is wrecked out. But now it is Michael Fang leading the way in the 217 with Bradley Hulse in second, and our own Dane Baird now up into third, but he is a good bit behind these two. Fang and Hulse are currently running 8th and 9th overall. Then it's 3 pro drivers, Larney, Madsen, and Costa, back to Baird, who currently runs in 13th with Alice DeVries behind him, as Baird goes to battle with Pascal Costa, trying to get as many positions as he can. And Austin Foster is going to make a move on Alice DeVries to take over fourth place in class, 14th overall on the racetrack. And we're going to catch our breath from all that action that happened there on those previous 2 laps and just kind of regroup, as Casper Loon still leads the way overall in the pro class. 2.5 second gap between him and now Bob Humphrey, who sits in second. Then it's Roger Christensen, Josh Cam, David Plasman, your top 5 overall in the pro class. Then it's Fang, Hulse, Baird, Foster, and DeVries, your top 5 for the AM class, as we continue to race on here in race number 2. 7 minutes down, about 23 to go, and we saw a lot of carnage earlier on. And Alessandro, I think I speak for both of us when I say I think these drivers are going to calm down a bit now.
Yeah, we've seen plenty of accidents at the start. Drivers obviously with the inverted grid compared to race 1 for the top 13 guys, towards the middle of the bunch, obviously looking to get plenty of positions, but this also means being very aggressive, because any position you can gain the opening 2 laps means you put some more cars between you and your championship contenders. But obviously this means also having to risk much more compared to race 1, and you've seen in these 8 minutes of race 2, the people not making any mistake are the one actually now looking in a better picture for the championship. Like Costa, 12th place, has been very quiet. Drivers that risked more now are out of contention, as we have a pass for 4th place for David Plasman on Josh Cam.
Plasman takes over 4th place. The Porsche Sport driver Josh Cam falls to 5th. Here's Dane Baird, currently 3rd in the AM class, trying to get by Costa and Madsen ahead of him. Now, if you remember back to race number 1, Madsen and Costa were 2 drivers who were in the thick of 2 different battles at the same time, as Madsen tries to go to the outside of Costa. Now that's going to quickly turn into the inside through this right-hander, and you can see Baird just watching all this happen. He's trying to find a room anywhere possibly that he can, as Costa and Madsen go side by side. They're racing for pro class points, with Dane Baird racing for AM class points. This just goes to show how any position on track, because the points are done by overall finish, is important. As here comes Baird. Will he join this fight just yet? I think he's buying his time and waiting, as these 2 are going to go side by side into Dunlop.
Absolutely. If I were in Baird's shoes, definitely I wouldn't even dare to put the nose in there, because these guys are fighting really hard, and it's pointless for him to risk to jeopardize his effort in race 2. Madsen and Costa fighting still hard for 10th, and these 2 guys obviously also fighting for their championship top spots, so we need to be very careful, as also Forster and Breeze are not far, so we have plenty of AM drivers looking for big points in this race too.
Side by side, that's your current AM class leader, Michael Fang, with Salvatore Larney, who is a part of the pro class. And oh my, here comes Madsen and Costa battling. And here comes Dane Baird. He now has an opportunity to take the AM class lead as they go side by side right behind Madsen and Costa. Baird's going to take over the AM class lead. 1 car around, 1 car mounting each other down there in the turn number 16. But Baird and Fang now side by side looking for the AM class lead. Is Baird. Fang looking to defend. Here they come down to turn number 1. Baird's gonna get it, but will he clear it? Fang with the crossover, not able to get there. Baird leads.
Great pass by Dane. Fang with also some little damage on the right side, so he might have been involved in some shenanigans earlier on in the race. As we see, still there's a great fight for 9th place now between Madsen and Costa develop, giving plenty of breathing room for Salvatore Larney in 8th and all the drivers in front, considering these 2 guys showed in race 1 they are the class of the field today.
We're taking a look at a battle right now between Dan Parmalee in the 271 and Lewis Ward and Mark Jones. And pass going on back here, the 234 of Pontus Alferstrom is going to battle with Simone Van Dijk and Jelt Heldorn. And I don't know who went around in turn 16. We have a lot of drivers on the bottom list of our timing screen that is all currently either a lap down or sitting in pit road, and it's just a sea of blue from 34th down all the way into 46th. But side by side going back is Madsen and Costa. Madsen going to take that spot back away from Costa, and these two are going to continue to go on to battle. And a little bit of grass taken up from Madsen. Now here comes Costa, looking to be inside through turn 13. They're going to make their way into the 14-15 chicane. Will any magic moves be made here? Will Madsen try and defend? Yes, he will, and he's going to keep the spot. So he's going to keep 9th place. Costa stays in 10th. And here comes Dan Baird looking for more points. He's looking for 10th overall, and he's going to get it through turn 16.
Great pass.
Oh, second place around. That was Michael Fang. I think that was contact with Kev Copeland. Who did he make contact with there? I think that was Copeland, or it might have been Foster.
Very unfortunate for the Swedish driver. Being involved in multiple wrecks race 2, as Baird still defends the 10th position on Costa, but needs to be careful because obviously Costa is gonna give it all to not lose Madsen in 9th.
Baird trying to keep that spot away from Costa to gain more AM class points. Right now where he sits in 10th, he'll receive 36 points. 35 points is what is given to 11th place overall. So he's trying to get those extra points. Any position means more points on the racetrack. And here comes Costa back to the inside, leaving Dane a little bit of room there on the outside, but not that much as they go side by side through the straightaway down into Dunlop. Costa gonna have the dominant line, and he's gonna take the spot back. So Baird falls to 11th overall. He's still leading the AM class as you see Foster and Copeland go battling through the Dunlop curve, and one car's around. That looks like Wadsworth's around. Jack Knight spinning him in the 246. I'm not sure who else was involved in that one.
Fang was involved too.
Oh, more trouble with Fang as more cars go racing here towards the midfield. There's Kamil Grabowski, your current Pro Class Drivers Championship leader and Race 1 winner overall and in the Pro Class. He's going racing with Kevin Poen as he opts up into 22nd overall. And the 217 of Michael Fang has had enough. He's throwing it back to pit road. An unfortunate day for him. He was looking very promising towards the beginning of that race as we near now halfway.
Look at this midfield. Looks like we are still on lap 1. Everybody bunched up together, fighting for their positions side by side. Now we are on board with Peter Mackay. 25th place for him. 26th Wadsworth, fighting for these great points, a great improvement for Peter compared to last week in Long Beach, as we have some issues for Madsen, maybe a slowdown.
I think Madsen might have spun coming through turn number 16. We'll take a look. Might have gotten a little, yes he did, got a little too far off the rumble strip into the gravel with the rear tires and into the wall. And already not a fairy tale race number 2 for Madsen, becoming even worse as he falls to 15th overall. We take a look at Kamil Grabowski continuing, even with that front end damage, to slice his way through cars. And he now sits in 20th place overall, 13th in class for the Pro Drivers class, and one car goes around towards the back. That was Kevin Poen in the 130.
Still drivers pushing very, very hard. You can see all these battles, drivers not conceding any single inches to whoever they are fighting. But look at Casper Lund doing a great drive in race 2. 5 seconds is the gap to Bob Humphrey and Roger Christiansen, second and third place. Getting that second place with the reverse grid obviously helped him quite a lot, especially since he made already P2 clear at the end of turn 1.
Right now we're seeing more of a runaway than we saw in race number 1 as Casper Lund continues to try and keep that lead and keep that gap growing as it now almost grows to 6 seconds. We saw a 3/10 gap end race number 1, and Alessandro now with that 5-second gap, 5.8 seconds, almost 6 total seconds gap between first and second. Is Casper Lund gonna just try and run hot laps down to the end, or is he gonna try and extend that gap even further, make sure that even if he makes a mistake, Humphrey has no opportunity to catch him?
Oh yeah, for sure. He needs to keep getting very solid laps, because you know, Joshua, when you have these 5 or 6 seconds gaps, you start thinking about something else, or just wondering your back of your mind what I'm going to do next. And that's when the mistake is gonna strike us. We see another great pass for Knight on World for 17th place, and we have a proof last week with that turn last lap mistake by Costa, I think, for in race 2. So you need to be always very careful, because this car can bite in a second.
So Jack Knight racing in 17th right now. He has Lewis Ward and Mark Jones behind him, as Lund leads overall ahead of Humphrey, Christensen, Plasman, and Cam, with Kessler, Lee, Larney, Costa, and your AM class leader Dane Baird rounding out your top 10. Nearing down time in this race. Now, race number 1 was 20 minutes long. This one is 30 minutes long. So in race number 1, at about 17 and a half minutes, we had about 2 minutes and a half left in the race. Here we have about 12 minutes and a half remaining. We'll be at 12 minutes exact right as that clock reaches 18 minutes. We take a look at your AM class leader, Dane Baird. And Alessandro, Dane talked last week about the bad luck that he had in Long Beach. He was talking to us in our Discord chat in between races that he had, you know, more bad luck with a PC freeze and a wreck going through the chicane in race number 1. Now he's seeing a little bit of success in race number 2, trying to extend that gap over Kev Copeland, but Copeland is closing now ever so slightly. What do you think Dane Baird is willing to do to try and keep this lead, as you see him trying to get every ounce of track limits that he can to send the car into the corner to try and get a fast time?
Oh yeah, for sure he's gonna try to clinch this first position in the AM class, but it's gonna be difficult, because Copeland, as you can see from this lap times comparison, is much faster. But you never know. We have 12 minutes left. Tire wear might kick in a little bit in this race too, because obviously being 10 minutes longer, normal Porsche Cup length races. Although you must say the weather here in Germany today is pretty chill, so cold temperature, only 80 Fahrenheit, not very hard on tires.
Taking a look at Nick Madsen, trying to fight his way through a group of AM cars. He has John Gordon ahead of him. There's a replay of Nick Madsen going through turn number 1. And we saw a little bit of smoke going through turn 1 when we were focusing on a couple AM class drivers, and it looks like Madsen just locked it up. And that was when John Gordon in the 281 got by. And was able to keep Jack Knight in the 246 behind him. But Madsen, again, we talked about it earlier, he was hoping for a fairy tale race 2, and this is just the opposite. It is a nightmare right now for Nick Madsen as he continues to fall down the order, as Humphrey and Christensen have caught each other and are looking to battle for the second spot. This is still 7.5 seconds almost back from your leader, Casper Lund.
Speaking of falling down the order, it's Mark Jones having issues a few corners ago, dropping 4 or 5 positions in the midfield. Now back on to 25th place. Meantime, also Grabowski goes up to 18th. Ward having issues too, dropping right now down the order. So you can see still plenty of battles and fights all over the field. Midfield being very, very tight. And also now looking very good for second place between Humphrey Christiansen and also David Plasman, coming back very, very strong in this race too, after having issues in the opening laps of race 1. Came back through the field, ended up his first race in 18th place, and now having a chance to score some big points and getting a podium.
Personal best times now on the timing screen. You can see Plasman's personal best is the best of the race, a 1:59.905, and that's getting close down to the times that we saw in qualifying. So Plasman has a fast race car from Next Level Racing by Sim Controls, and he's just looking to try and gain as many positions as he can. This is the battle for second. It is a 3-car battle, second, third, and fourth. Humphrey Christensen and now Plasman joining the fight, with Casper Loon 7 seconds up the road and Josh Cam about 3 seconds behind them as they race through the Michael Schumacher S down into turn 11 in this little 3-car battle. We saw a lot of these 3-car battles in race number 1. This is the first we're really seeing here in race number 2, but it seems like these battles, it's very difficult to pass, because if you're the lead car, you have to just try and defend behind you. If you're the middle car, you have to defend behind you, and you have to try and pass the car in front of you that is running your exact line. Then if you're the back car, you have to try and pass 2 cars that are running your exact line. It's very difficult to make anything happen in these little 3-car draft packs that we see all the time here in the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup Championship and the iRacing Porsche Cup Championship.
Exactly, you need to be very careful, because if now Christiansen doesn't make a move stick, he could easily lose third place to Plasman. So it's gonna be very, very difficult. He needs to time the attack perfectly. Right now, going around the outside of Bob Humphrey, but you need to be careful, because look at who's coming 3 wide, locking up the brake, goes completely wide, unfortunately, Plasman, and loses the 2 drivers in front. He tried the bold move to make his stick, but it didn't. So now he will have to work all over again from scratch, and also get that second lost back as soon as possible. Let's see the replay. Moves all the way from one side to the other to the inside of this treacherous corner, locks up the front brakes, and once you get that front tires to lock up, there's no coming back, unfortunately, Josh.
And he went for it up the inside, just trying to gain any possible positions that he can, and it did not work out for Plasman as he locked up and went right off track. Here's your AM class leader, Dane Baird. He has extended the gap a little bit over Kev Copeland. Last time by, it was about a 3.5 gap between those two with respect to the lap times. Baird getting a 2:01.26, a 2:01.61 from Kev Copeland. So this is a battle between Carol's Competition and Evo SR. And right now, Baird is doing a great job leading this AM class, with Copeland, Foster, Erger, and Gordon rounding out the top 5 currently in the AM class. And here comes Copeland. He's catching a little bit as they come out of the Dunlop curve through the Schumacher S. And Baird's doing a great job trying to lead, but Copeland is last year's AM Drivers Champion, and he is very fast in these Porsches. We didn't really see it at Long Beach, but we're starting to see it here at the Nurburgring. Alessandro, even though he didn't have the best finish at Long Beach in round 1, do you think we might see a resurgence of Kev Copeland, and he might be a back-to-back AM Drivers Champion by the end of this thing?
Oh, might well be, for sure. You never know. It's only 1 race and a half gone in this championship so far, and we've seen already plenty of drama. So I think nobody's out of contention for any title so far, because these races can be very, very unpredictable. So I expect some new faces for next event for sure, looking at the top spot. And as I said, I think consistency in making no mistakes is going to pay off in the end.
Larney goes side by side with Costa now through the Mercedes Arena, turn 2 and 3. Still side by side. That's Costa on the outside, Larney on the inside. Salvatore Larney going to get a little bit of a better run through the corner, but make some contact with the 167 of Pascal Costa, and Costa is going to take over 8th spot currently on the racetrack, but I don't think they're done racing yet. Salvatore Larney looking up the inside for the position back. This is the battle for 8th place as they come down towards Dunlop.
A little mistake in front of them for Lee, losing plenty of time, but still 4 seconds ahead of these two. Great battle between Costa and Larney for 8th place. Costa definitely looking to not make any mistake, because he's the one placed in a better position of all for the championship so far.
They continue to battle now for the 8th spot. This is Costa versus Larney, Impulse Racing versus North Sim Racing. They make their way through turns 11 and 12. And these 2-car battles are very interesting to watch because you don't have that much of a slipstream from any cars in front of you or really any cars behind you. You don't have a push either. So it's really
You have some
a battle
issues
of
with
raw
this.
speed.
I think Peter Mackay had some trouble dropping a few positions with Mark Jones, as we have a battle for third place between Humphrey and Plasman. But they need to be careful because someone is coming very, very fast behind. It's Josh Camp for 5th place. Humphrey still defending from Plasman, but unfortunately now the driver from the Netherlands goes into 3rd place. So 4-way battle in these last 2 laps, I think, between Christiansen, Plasman, Humphrey and Camp.
This is definitely might become a 4-car battle. As you can see, they're close together right now, but it's really 2 and 2. That gap in the middle is pretty stretched out, but you can see them. They're racing, trying to catch it up as this group of cars, Christensen, Plasman, Humphrey, and Cam, all sit about 10 seconds back from your leader, Casper Lund. I don't think there's any catching Casper Lund right now with 3 minutes to go in this race. But as of right now, they can all battle for as many points as they can. And even just looking at, you know, the spread of points in this battle, this is the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. 2nd place gets 56 points, 3rd gets 51, 4th 47, and 5th 44. So we're not talking about one position equals 1 point gained here in this battle specifically. We're talking about upwards of 5 points, 4 points, 3 points gained on each position that they pass on the racetrack. This is for a lot of points, especially for Josh Cam if he can get by a lot of these cars.
Absolutely. So I'm expecting for this exact reason some crazy moves in these last laps. I can confirm you that this lap will be the upcoming lap, will be the last one. So we have a white flag right now as Casper Lund is crossing the line now, less than 2 minutes on the clock. So last lap of this event.
They have 1 lap to settle it out there for second, and the gap has closed. Now the 136 of Humphrey and the 177 of Josh Cam are both there. As here goes to the inside. That's David Plasman on Roger Christensen. Will he get the spot? Christensen goes wide. Here comes Plasman now up the inside, trying to make it work. Not gonna happen. Around the inside goes Roger Christensen to take the spot back, but Plasman's not done. Back to the inside, some contact, but Plasman takes over second. And here comes Humphrey now to the outside of Roger Christensen. He gets loose, trying to get it back on the racetrack. Christensen gonna keep 3rd. Humphrey now in 4th. Josh Cam for Porsche Sport falls back a little bit, but here he comes, roaring back into this fight. Now Plasman trying to check out from this field as they head through turn 7. This is very much still a 4-car battle as much as Plasman tries to run away. Now a battle starting to brew for 4th place. Here comes Humphrey to the inside of Josh Cam in the 177. Cam gonna try and close the door. He stays on the outside through Dunlop. Now they're side by side towards the exit. A little bit of an edge for Bob Humphrey, but Cam's gonna have the advantage going through this corner. They're still side by side. Runs off track. Goes Bob Humphrey. Cam keeps the spot. I don't know how that's gonna go over well with the stewards, the headlight flash. I don't think Humphrey's happy with that move, but he's gonna fall into 5th.
I think Humphrey did a fantastic move there by completely cutting the Schumacher S's, because if he ever tried to make it stick, that was a race over for both of them, I think. So there Humphrey did a very, very wise choice and cut all the way across the gravel as Casper Lund a solo victory here in Germany for race 2 for the Axel Sport driver with a textbook drive. 2nd place for David Plasman, coming back through the field in both races. Great drive from the driver from the Netherlands. Christiansen and Cam 3rd and 4th, and Humphrey in 5th, round up the top 5. But here is our AM leader.
Dane Baird able to hold off Kev Copeland in the final minutes of this race. And Dane Baird for Carroll's Competition is going to grab his first class win of the season. 10th overall, but first in the AM class. And there is your race 1 AM class winner, Leon Erger. He's going to come across the line, 12th overall and 3rd in class. What a race, Alessandro.
Some more drama for Forster in this final lap. As we see the replay, Erger, the 2-1 of Forster, tries to close the door and Erger just moves him out of the way. So another incident to watch for our stewards, as pretty much the whole field has crossed the finish line. As we look at Spalek, and here we are with him doing some donuts. Hopefully he pays more attention than Jordan Taylor in the 24 of Daytona, where he almost crashed his Corvette into the pit lane wall after doing donuts.
Well, what a race here from the Nurburgring. Race 1 and a lot of great battles, but race 2, it was carnage filled at the beginning, but we ended up with some great battles towards the end. Before we get into pre-race interviews, just going over right now our winners from the day: Grabowski and Erger, your Pro Class and AM Class winners respectively from race number 1, and then race number 2, Casper Lund and Dane Baird. Alessandro, what did you think of all that action? Because it was so much that happened both in race 1 and race 2. It was hard to keep up sometimes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank God Marco is very, very fast in switching cameras. And the drivers gave him a very, very tough job today with all these great maneuvers, passing, and unfortunately also plenty of incidents. But here are the race 2 results. Casper Lund is our race winner in front of David Plasman, Roger Christiansen, Josh Kam, and Bob Humphrey, rounding up the top 5, followed by Max Kessler, Danny Lee, Pascal Costa, Salvatore Larnè, and our own Dane Baird, our AM winner for race 2. 11th place for Kev Copeland in front of championship leader for the AM field, Leon Erger. Hans Hansen in 13th, John Gordon, Kamil Grabowski, Jack Knight, Kas Brinkhuizen, and followed by Dan Parmley, Damien Harris, Raymond Deo, Dennis Meisner, Lewis Ward, Nick Madsen, Simon Van Dijk, Peter Mackay, Thor Berven, Mark Jones, Paul Dawn in 28th from Lesson Racing, Austin Forster in 29th, Pontus Hofstrom in 30th, Martin Spalek, Bradley Hulse, Jed Eldorn, Scott Martin in 34th, are all drivers on the lead lap. One lap down, Thomas Grendel and Eilers de Vries in 37, two laps down, Lucas Deering, followed by Kevin Poen in 38, Peter Watsford, Michael Fang, unfortunate today with many incidents in race 2, Nils Distert in 41st, David Big Dyke in 42nd, Nils Langeveld, Kevin Nielsen, Fabian Mayer, Nick Roland, Kalle Kuhlmann in 47, and don't pay attention to that great 61 car who after 6 years on iRacing still doesn't know how to join a watch race.
A great race here from the Nurburgring, and we're going to start off our post-race interviews by getting a talk. It looks like first we're going to grab our AM class winner, and that's Dane Baird. And Dane, welcome to the commentary box. First of all, congratulations on that race 2 AM class win.
Oh yeah, thanks. I'm going to be honest, I have absolutely no idea how I did that. Yeah, race 1, I was actually doing surprisingly well. Definitely didn't expect that. I barely got any practice, maybe 2 hours in before this race. Didn't qualify very well, qualified 21st. And then I found myself up in 16th. I was very happy with that. But then my PC froze, which you might have seen otherwise. But yeah, my PC completely froze up. I couldn't see where I was going. Ended up in the gravel trap and down to 44. So that wasn't ideal in race 1. But yeah, race 2, just incident avoidance and then trying to keep Kev behind me.
Yeah, and I want to go back to that Kev Copeland battle towards the last half of the race number 2, because he was closing in for a good while there. Did you really try and turn on the heat when you realized he was very close, or did you just try and keep running consistently, thinking that maybe tire wear or something would slow down Kev Copeland?
Around about lap 7, I noticed that he was about 3-4 seconds back, and he was behind, I think it was Austin. And yeah, I knew that I was faster than Austin, so I tried to just build up the gap as much as possible because I know that Kev is faster than me. So eventually when Kev did get past, he caught up fairly quickly within a couple of laps. And then for the rest of the race, I was just trying to maintain the gap. It was about a second. I think he made a mistake a couple times. So he dropped back about half a second, but then straight away again, closed it back up. And yeah, it wasn't an on-track battle, but it was definitely a mental battle.
And now with that AM class win, you mentioned last week in Long Beach when we interviewed you, all the issues that you had there, but now going into the Nurburgring, you had some success very greatly here. Is this going to be a start of a new Dane Baird going into the remaining rounds? Do you think you can make a run at the AM Class Drivers' Championship?
We're only round 2 of 9 in. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but yeah, there's still a long way to go. And next round, Sonoma. Sonoma's probably one of my worst circuits, so I'm not expecting too much there. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season. Some of the racing that I've seen wasn't so good, but some of the racing has been a lot of fun.
Anyone else you'd like to thank here on Apex Racing TV?
Jack Knight for doing it with me. It's a lot of fun in the team chat. You guys for the broadcast. I forgot to say that last week. Sorry about that. But yeah, definitely you guys for the broadcast. Everyone at Apex Racing League for putting this on, and Apex Racing Academy for sponsoring.
Well, thank you very much. That is Dane Baird, your AM Class driver winner. We're going to transfer over now to the Pro Class as Alessandro Dalladone is going to stand by with Bob Humphrey.
Hey Bob, how are you doing? Great job today. You did an amazing race, 5th place in race 2. You've been very, very competitive around this beautiful track.
Yeah, it was. Pace has been quite good, surprisingly, because it's not a track I particularly like. But I managed to mess up qualifying. But I think I was 23rd in qualifying, but managed to be at P7 at some point in race 1 through all the carnage. But yeah, pace has been good. Some really hard racing. It's just a shame I couldn't hang on to that second in race 2.
Oh yeah, we've seen you being swallowed by the other drivers in the last lap. Were you thinking more a big picture, or did you give your all best in the last lap? We've seen you fighting hard with Josh at Schumacher S. You had to go through the gravel with an evasive move.
I think we had a little netcode because I got like a 0x to a 2x, so I imagine it was a netcode, so it was probably all clean on his end. So it was just really hard racing. But yeah, I've been told off for thinking bigger picture too often. So I was full send for both races, and it was a lot of fun, to be fair. But yeah, it was just hard racing. I really wanted to hang on to the podium in that race too, but those guys were just so quick, and my rear tyres were treated badly, so they weren't happy.
Anybody you would like to thank before we let you go, Bob?
My old man who did the season last season. So thanks, old man, for watching. And obviously thanks to you guys for being here.
Well, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see you here in the booth also next week with a great performance at Sonoma.
Yeah, see you at Simona. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. So, Joshua, we move over now to our second place finisher, David Glassman.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, David. Great finish in second place overall and in the Pro Class. And towards the end, it became a 4-horse fight between a lot of you up towards the front. You, Christensen, Cam, Humphrey. How exciting was that battle? Because you came into that battle and then got those positions really quickly and started to pull away on that final lap.
Yeah, I knew I was quicker, but yeah, my qualification was just really bad. So I started race 1 from something like 40 or so, race 2 from 18, and then I saw I had to pace, but I made a stupid mistake in turn 1. I tried to send it. I had no patience, and then your braking point is away. So I thought, okay, let's gain that speed in the braking that I don't hit someone. And then the fight was going on. It was quite a nice one until the last lap, and yeah. I could secure the second position.
And that securing second place position, and we saw you have some good finishes at Long Beach. Not exactly what you were looking for, though. And going into the Nurburgring, were you focusing on the points because you came in 20th in points? So that's obviously not where really anybody wants to be, is 20th in points going out of round number 1. But now going into round number 2, you had 2 good finishes in these races. Is this going to be a start of maybe a championship run for you if you can put something good together at Sonoma, Montreal, Suzuka in the remaining rounds?
No, I just look every race is on its own. And yeah, the last race was just a big bummer because I had a lot of practice in and everything went well. And the qualification is just a point I have to work on because that's where I'm making the major mistakes. And then in the race, especially at Long Beach, it's almost not possible to overtake, and the big mayhem what was happening there. So yeah, for the championship, I want to try it. Of course, the pace is there, but I have to work hard for my quali run because that's really bad.
And we head into Sonoma next week. How confident are you at Sonoma on the long configuration in these Porsches?
I never drove that track, so we're gonna try. We're gonna try and start cracking after this weekend, and then we'll see where it ends. But yeah, I know the track from when I was very young in the older games, like Forza and stuff. But in iRacing, I never drove it, so we have to work hard for it now.
Anyone else you would like to thank here on Apex Racing TV?
Yeah, you guys, of course, for doing the broadcast, and the Next Level Racing guys, Sim Controls. And see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. David Plasman, second place overall and second place in the pro class. And now we have your second place in the AM class right now, standing by with Alessandro Dalladone. It's Kev Copeland.
Yeah, Kev,
good evening, chaps.
How are you doing? Great drive today. Both races very close to the win in the AM class.
Yeah, I'm actually really gutted because if I hadn't made mistakes or got hit, I can't remember which, in the early laps of both races, that they should have been even better. But it was so much fun doing 2 recovery drives from quite low down in the field. It was just, and I was just on it, really enjoyed it. But that damage I had in race 2 just meant I couldn't quite take it to Dane on those last few laps, which was a real shame. But he made no mistakes in those last few laps while I was chasing him down. So kudos to Dane for that. It was great fun.
Yeah, talk us through how was racing today. We've seen plenty of people having issues early on, some incidents, especially in race 2. Do you think there was any difference between race 1 and race 2 in the behavior of the drivers? Because race 1 seemed to be more quiet.
To be honest, I didn't notice myself any sort of change in behaviour. I mean, to be fair, I got tapped by my teammate in race 1, so you know. But in race 2, it was pretty good. Although I did get tangled in something on race 2, which is how I got the bonnet damage. But I really don't honestly know what was going on there. So I'll find out when I watch the stream back. But
well, for sure, for you, a very positive evening. Next week we go back to the US at Sonoma. Have you ever did any official races there?
No, I believe I've even got to buy the track. I don't actually think I've got it. So that'll be a total new one on me. So I better get some practice in.
Oh yeah, for sure. It is definitely a very interesting track. Before we let you go, Kev, anyone you would like to thank?
You guys for a great stream. Thank you very much for putting on the league, and as usual, my dear wife for her long suffering of my practice hours and race hours, and for sitting there and cheering me on while she's watching you guys. Thanks.
You're welcome. And Joshua, I think we have time for a very quick interview with Bradley Hoyes.
Yeah, not a great race number 2 for Bradley Hoyes as he finishes pretty far down the order overall. I believe 32nd overall today. Bradley, what happened during race number 2? We saw a lot of carnage up front, and I believe you were caught up in a bit of that early carnage in race 2.
Yeah, I had a really good start after race 1, finishing completely out of position in P19. So start P19 race 2. I had a quite good start, got up to P9, and then the chicane of death, I got dived into it, and it all went downhill from there.
Now we head into Sonoma Lawn next week. Are you more confident in Sonoma, and also you're more confident that we might have a little bit of a less wrecks than we had this week in Sonoma?
Yeah, it should be hopefully a bit cleaner, but I've never done a lap round there, same as Kev, I think. So it's going to be interesting. I've got a lot to learn, and I'll see what happens next week.
And anyone else you'd like to thank here on Apex Racing TV?
Thanks for you guys for commentating it. Thanks to all the guys at Twinjet for supporting me all the way through, and thanks to Kev Ellis Jr. for helping me yesterday in the Apex Racing Academy group.
Well, thank you very much. Bradley Hulse is 32nd overall here in race 2 from the Nurburgring. A lot of carnage today, Alessandro, but we're coming out of this with some new winners in the races, some new interesting stuff going on in the points. As I believe when we preview in Sonoma a week's time, we're gonna have a big shake-up in the points, and we might have some more points battles going on. But going into Sonoma, what are your predictions? 2 races there, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it's the shortest racetrack I believe we're gonna be going to for the time being, and a lot tighter racetrack as well than the Nurburgring. Are you expecting some more carnage, or are you expecting some cleaner racing next week?
I think it's gonna be interesting for sure. I really expect more carnage, but I expect bigger gaps between drivers because these tracks we've been so far, Long Beach was particular. Nürburgring is a well-known track where most of the field already had plenty of experience. Sonoma is a track that for some drivers will be completely new, and it's gonna be definitely a challenge for most of them. I think we might see some familiar faces up front in both classes, but we might see some new faces too. The championship has 7 more rounds. We are only 2 in, so we might see some new drivers looking at the top places, with drivers getting more familiar to the car, and some drivers maybe more familiar with the track.
Well, we thank you all for tuning in here for the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup Championship, round 2 from the Nurburgring. We would like to thank our title sponsor, Apex Racing Academy. You can head to apexracingac.com right now for setups, track guides, weekly group coaching sessions, and it's all integrated with Virtual Racing School. And you can get the Porsche Cup package with Kevin Ellis Jr., giving you setups and training you on how to drive these cars at apexracingac.com. For Alessandro Dalladone and Marco Barbanera, I am Joshua Lee. We thank you all for tuning in, and we are saying good night from the Nurburgring.